Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another tips and tricks video for Golf Blitz. Today, we will be highlighting yet another tour, and that is going to be tour number 2, which you see on the screen now. That is the Pleasant Land tour. From last week's video, we didn't have any additional suggestions from the Golfy tour that we looked at, so unfortunately there won't be any additional highlights for that course in today's video, but we will still have plenty of good things to look at with the tips for these Pleasant Land courses. So let's go ahead and jump into these tricks for the different holes on this particular tour. And if you find today's video helpful, enjoyable, and or interesting, make sure that you hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for daily variety content. We do this series once a week, but there's plenty of stuff that happens in between to keep you entertained and keep your subscription feed full. So that would greatly be appreciated. Anyway, let's not delay any further and jump right into these Pleasant Land tips and tricks. So for this first hole, there's a couple of different routes that one can choose to go about. There is the route of going up and over the top if you have access to the putty ball, and that could be a decent strategy if you've got a lot invested into power. However, you may find yourself, if you're lacking in the power category, you may find yourself falling off, similar to what you just saw there from me, but it could end up being worth it. It's all just kind of a trade-off depending on what it is that you're looking for and what perks that you have put into your character's development. So that is one strategy. There are other strategies for the other side of that, which we'll showcase now. So like I was saying before, if you don't have access to a lot of power stat, or if you don't have the putty ball at all, you'll want to try and get up to this lower landing as quickly as possible. If you can make it to that putty, that's fine, but overall, you'll just want to make sure that you can make your way up to the second portion of this course and then get a nice roll into the hole. Probably could have spaced that one a little bit better to roll in a little bit more quickly, but you can get up to that hole decently quick with that standard route. So for this hole, there's really the best thing that you can do is if you do have the sniper ball, you'll just want to take a hit down into the lower section because that bypasses a lot of the other confusion that could happen here. And there's not a super good way of getting down to this lower section without taking an extra hit there. So if you have the laser ball, you may be able to hone in on that, but otherwise you'll just want to work your way down into the other section before making your way around into the lower part of that course. But by all means, nothing too crazy. So for this hole, there's a couple of different things that you can do. It really doesn't matter a whole lot whether you choose to go left or right. If you have access to the power ball like this one, it may actually be in your best interest to come over here to the right side and then use the power ball to get up and over into the second part of that course. Again, that will work best if you have additional elixir bonus off the start of the course, which you start getting at level 25, I believe. And then it's just really making sure that you can get a straight shot over to the hole and drop yourself in. If you don't have the option to go right there at the start, then you may want to go left and then hit up into the sand trap. But that is something to leave up for consideration on that hole in particular, depending on what resources you have available to you. You really won't want to sit and wait for a power ball that early on in the course unless you have the bonus elixir off the start, because then you're just going to be wasting time and your opponents are going to get further ahead of you. So as I'd mentioned before, if you don't have access to the power ball here, it may be better to come up to this left-hand landing and then over to the sand trap that's there. And then you'll want to try and make your way up to the course there. Of course, I just missed out on that due to having a lower power stat. Again, if you have invested in increased power, then you shouldn't really have to worry about that as much as I have to. And then it's just a straighter shot down here to the bottom part of this course to finish that out. So this hole's quite a bit of fun. There's two different paths again that you can take, though I highly recommend taking this left-handed course just because it will get you to the base of this course a bit quicker. If you're really unlucky, you might end up in this lower crevice here, but you don't really have to be too concerned about a whole lot of that. If you have the putty ball, the best option is going to be sticking onto the course. Though coming down to this right-hand side of the track, it does line up a little bit better for the use of the sniper ball and getting into that hole a little bit quicker. But either route is viable, with the left route being the more favorable in most circumstances. Moving on into this next hole though, this is another one that gets kind of interesting. What you can do is just kind of ride your way down this. And the nice thing is that anytime you come in contact with sand, it will immediately stop your trajectory. And then upon making your way to the bottom part of this course, it's a fairly straight shot. If you do have the sniper ball and you're wanting to feel a little bit more comfortable on the shot that you are about to take, you can use that to get down to that lower section of the course, and that should do just fine for you. With the sniper ball, if you're looking for a hole-in-one like I attempted off the start there, you will want to try and get a higher angle, just so you're less likely to glance off and roll further away from that, but it gets you over to the other side where the putting green is, so at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation. Okay, so here's a really fun little tour. Similar to a trick that we looked at in last week's episode, if you want to get down to the bottom of this course faster, you'll want to try and bank off of this section up here to the higher left that you saw that I just identified there. And then it's a similar strategy here, but it's a little bit of a narrower passage, so that can be a little bit more difficult to get if you end up on that higher sandbank. And then from here, you've just got to make your way down to the bottom part of this course. We didn't quite make it off of the initial roll there, but did end up making our way down to the base. Again, you're just going to want to try and bank off of those little diagonal bits in the bottom corners to get a redirect down to a lower section. This hole, very straightforward. You'll want to try and use a speedball type elixir if you have access to that early on. Otherwise, you'll just want to make sure that you take that shot. You don't need excess power in order to get that. And then as soon as you get your way down onto the bottom end of the course, you just need to make sure that you're down on the lower level so you can have a straighter, better shot at that green. So with this hole in particular, there's one of two different routes that you can go depending on the power-ups you have access to. Of course, the easy access is going over this way and getting stuck in the sand. And the reason you want to try aiming for the sand again is because it will immediately stop your momentum, and then you can take your next shot a little bit quicker. Alternatively, if you have the putty ball, you can do one of two different things. You can either aim higher to try and get easier access to this lower section of the course, or you can take a bit of a gamble and take a lower shot down here and then follow that up with a secondary putty ball in order to get to this lower section of the course. But it is dependent on the elixir that you have access to. Yes, that was relatively short for me, but I'm up at level 33, so if you're at a lower level, you may not be able to pull off that shot in the early accesses to this tour. So like I was saying a moment ago, if you don't have access to the putty ball, you'll want to try and make sure that you bank into this sand pit, and then you'll want to overshoot back to this later one as well. The last sand pit that you'll want to try and aim for is this one, this tiny little section right there, and you may even be able to glance off of that area and bounce down to the bottom portion of the track if you don't land in the sand directly. Again, it is kind of worth taking a gamble if you have higher amounts of elixir to use that putty ball off of the right-hand wall, if that is an option for you. But otherwise, you'll want to try and make your way down that path as quickly as possible using that method I just showcased. This is another fun little course. Again, I recommend if you can to use the fast forward or speedball there. And then you can get up into this higher section of the course. I don't really recommend it. I haven't seen it pan out incredibly well. Though it does provide a little bit more of a straighter trajectory, it's not a guaranteed hole-in-one like we see with other courses of this caliber at later stages. So I recommend just going down for the lower portion of that course, at least initially, from the experiences that I've had playing on that hole particularly. So if you do have access to the sniper ball on this hole, it may actually be worth your time to invest taking that shot to the lower part of this course to where the sand trap is, and that way you can circumvent some of the additional shots that might need to be taken earlier on in that hole. So that's going to do it for today's installment of the tips and tricks, again, for the Pleasant Land course. We'll be back at it again next week with the following course, which will be Tour 3 Lakes. So if you're excited for that, again, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss that video and the other ones that come out between now and then. If you have any additional tips or tricks for the Pleasant Land course, be sure to drop those in the comments down below. And if they are good suggestions there, then I will be sure to note and showcase them in the beginning part of next week's video. But that's going to do it for today, so thanks again for letting me take a moment of your time, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.